Okay, Valis 2. Alright, so I gotta tell you, well, let's start off with this. If there's one thing that really sticks in my throat, it's when a system, for whatever reason, maybe it's copyright, maybe it's not having license to the original intellectual property. I really dislike it when they don't release every single entry in a series on the system in a playable format. Uh, and this game is one of them, unfortunately. Yeah, so on the TurboGrafx 16, they only had Valis's 2 and 3 in North America, that is. They had a remake of the first game, as well as a fourth game to be released in Japan, but unfortunately I'm not one who understands that language, so that's no good for me in this situation. But so with Valis 2, I mean, as you can all look up whenever you need to. It's a game about a young woman named Yuko who finds herself being chosen to be the defender of three different worlds. One of them is Earth, the spirit world, and another known as Vacanti, in which the voice actors in the game at every single opportunity find a way to butcher the pronunciation and change it every time the word is spoken. Uh, in fact, I've never heard it actually pronounced Vacanti. I've heard it called Bakanji, Vacanchi, or something like that. It's very, very strange. And I mean, the voice acting, like, I'm not going to harp on the voice acting, honestly. I mean, it was ported to the United States in a game where, at which point, CD-ROM games were very, very new. They were a novelty at this point. People, honestly, I understand this. I mean, I might go on to later go on to play Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes, which is also on the TurboGrafx CD, and people always attack it for its really bad voice acting. And I don't think it's that bad, honestly. I think that it's very well written. It's very articulate. I am very appreciative of it. That's for certain. Uh, I will say, in this game and other games like this, Defense, it was, as I said, at a time when this was a novelty. People weren't really sure, and I understand this perfectly. People weren't sure at the time whether or not people were even interested in voiced soundtracks, in voiced dialogue, right? This is proven for a fact in the aforementioned game, uh, Dragon Slayer: Legend of Heroes, because there is the ability to actually turn off the spoken dialogue and have all those originally spoken cutscenes to be listed, uh, well, to be read out in the form of text, right? So again, people didn't really know if this was going to be the next big thing, right? So again, they weren't going to invest a whole lot of money and time into it, right? But again, I think that they got good voice actors. I think, though, they could have, especially for the quote-unquote boss characters that are present throughout this game, uh, Toei, Hysen, and Gaius. I think those are the guys. They could have used synthesizers for their voice to kind of make them sound more. Uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Demonic, I guess, to make them sound more imposing. I guess deeper than that. Of course, it's not. It certainly gets the point across, is what I'm saying. What the kind of voice acting that they have going on at this point in the game as it's released at this point. Uh, I enjoy it, honestly. I really do. Yeah, I had a little bit of trouble at this point in the game, as you can see. Um, as I said, platforming games, as you saw in my playthrough of Magic Knight Rayearth, they are not my cup of tea, that's for certain. But I'm recording my voice as I'm watching the playthrough. It might give me more ideas on things to rant about. But so yeah, honestly, the voice acting to me, I think is for the most part well done. Uh, it doesn't rip me out of the game necessarily. I think that I just said that I think that maybe they could have used synthesizers, kind of made the voices deeper, more demonic, more esoteric, I guess. But I don't know if that would kind of draw away from the atmosphere and everything. And I mean that honestly. I'm not sure if it would sort of overdo what they would be trying to do. So I'm certainly, as I said, appreciative of how they did it in its present form. So I'm not going to attack these people, honestly, for what they did back in the day. They had very limited resources, very limited time, not a whole lot of money, and again, as I said, they didn't have a they didn't really think that this was going to be the next big thing, right? Because every kind of game before was spoken out in the form of text, and people could imagine the voices themselves, right? So this was a sort of transitional game. It's sort of like the sort of half sound, half silent movies that were coming out at the end of the 20s and the beginning of the 1930s, sort of like Mysterious Island. Um, so yeah, I have no real problem with that. But so the game itself, as you can see, is an action platformer. Lots of jumping, lots of, well, yeah, platforms and everything like that. Boss battles at the end of each level, and I would say the the cutscenes are, well, they're, as you can see, they're quarter screen and surrounded by a border of, well, pea green or whatever you would call that. But again, I think that they are well drawn, not necessarily well animated. I mean, again, this is a TurboGrafx CD. It's 1 megabit CD-ROM, released in 1989, originally in Japan. So, I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of system memory and hardware to work with, but I think they still did a good job. I mean, I liked watching the cutscenes. I think that for the most part they were pretty much well written. As I said, that the dialogue is rather articulate. It's not laden with English, so to speak. Other than the fact that I should have said in my rant about how they were pronouncing the word vacanti. Well, the game's name itself, Valis, and I'm I know for a fact that the Japanese language, or for whatever reason, whatever variables come into play, Japanese people find it difficult to pronounce the letter L. So it kind of comes out as a more DR kind of sound. Like I think Valis in original Japanese might be pronounced as, and this is just me guessing here from how I'm reading it, Varisu, I think. Um, so again, me being a native English speaker, I will never understand why certain things are hard to pronounce. I mean, of course, I can only speak English fluently. I can speak a little bit of French, but again, I know that certain English speakers find it difficult to roll their tongue, like, so they would find speaking maybe Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian rather difficult, but yeah, I guess I don't understand why it's impossible, or, well, not impossible, but rather difficult for Japanese speakers, maybe speakers of other East Asian languages, to pronounce the letter L. Um, so, as I was saying, in certain cutscenes and in certain voiceovers, the main characters, their allies, and sometimes the bad guys, they would pronounce Valis as Varis or Varus, right? As in a D or an R, right? Which, I mean, it's kitschy. I kind of like that. It's it sort of harkens back to a simpler time, honestly. So getting back to the game here now, uh, there are boss battles at the end of every level, and again, this sort of ties into what I was just saying. There's a little warning screen when the boss is about to come, and it says, "Warning! Like a strong warrior is approaching," or something. They could have just said, you know, incoming boss or something, but no, it's like it's sort of like a sort of direct translation from Japanese. But no, I find that it makes me smile, honestly. I like that kind of thing. And the bosses, of course, they're these massive creatures and everything, and as I was saying, they have these regular voices like, "Oh, you must give us the sword of Vadis," and it's very kitschy. It's very entertaining in its own sort of way, and again, as I said, I don't really like platforming games, but in the case of this one, and as you can see right now, I am heavily exploiting the fact that there are console cheats in this game to allow me to beat this game without dying all the time. Uh, yeah, no, didn't want to waste my viewers' time, however few they are, by watching me suck at the game, honestly. And again, I like this game, honestly, because while it is a sort of game that I'm not too big of a fan of in terms of genre, I like it because it is rather short. I mean, the entire video, as I posted, is just under an hour and 15 minutes, and I apologize for the long title scene in the beginning part of my video. I was, I don't know what I was doing, making sure it was recording, making sure everything was streaming properly, figuring out how to do the cheat code and everything. Yeah, so I mean, it goes on for like 3 minutes. I apologize for that. I thought I had edited it out, but I had only edited out the beginning portion with the TurboGrafx 16 logo, so maybe I'll take it down and edit it again, but you know, we'll see what happens when time comes. But yeah, so I mean, it's a very simple plot. It continues the plot of the first game, which, as I was complaining, was not released on this system. It was released in North America on the Sega Genesis, though I have tried to play it, and it is extremely difficult to get through, especially the opening cutscene. The text drags letter by letter. It's so long. It's so tedious, honestly. Like, you hope that you could like press and hold maybe the A, B, or C button on the Genesis controller to try and make the um, the text crawl faster, but no, it just doesn't. Yeah, strong warrior, Hyson the Ruthless is coming here. Fun, and they say it's like height and weight. It's just like, what the fuck? Yeah, tell me how old he is now. Tell me what his occupation is. It's like, does he have a wife and kids or something? Like, what does this have to do with anything? Like, I don't care how big he is, I'll still kick his ass, right? It has no real bearing on anything that's going on in the game. So, but yeah, no. You're fighting this guy named Magus. He's the brother of, and again, this was another word that they kept mispronouncing, and I wasn't even sure what they were saying until I looked it up myself only a few days before playing this game. Uh, I didn't know it was. I think his name is Rogueless, like as if you're a rogue and you're less, like Rogueless. I thought that maybe his name could have been Robeless, like if you're wearing a robe, like he's not wearing a robe, Robeless or something. I mean, I had never seen the word written down, and it seemed that everybody was mispronouncing it at every chance that they got, just as in the case of every other word. Um, so yeah, you're fighting his brother, who is a tyrant like Rogueless, but wants to destroy all former traces of him, sort of like what some of the Soviet dictators said and did about their predecessors. So yeah, and then it's just your basic action platformer. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can expect from it. I found it entertaining for the most part. Again, I like the anime cutscenes. I like the drawing style. I thought that they were very capable and effective at advancing the story's plot, and um, I felt, I had fun playing it because, well, I succeeded and it didn't overstay its welcome, as I like to say with certain games. I mean, yeah, everybody likes to get their money's worth out of a game. And one thing I should have said at the beginning is that this game I actually played on original hardware, my TurboGrafx 16 with CD-ROM attachment and 2.0 system card. Not only was it on original hardware, but it was actually, and it is, well, I should say it is actually an original copy of the game. It's not a burn or anything like that. It's not an ISO, which I'm rather proud of. It gives me the sort of arcade feel that Johnny Turbo always likes to talk about. Um, yeah, no. So uh, as a whole, I enjoyed the game. It's not terrible in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the controls could be tightened up a little more. I mean, as you saw, and when I mentioned it in the earlier part of this video, I had a good deal of difficulty with jumping from platform to platform in the second level, but other than that, I found it very entertaining. It's got nice colors. The sprites are nice and big. They're detailed and everything. So yeah, I have no real problem with this game. I'll certainly play the next game in the series, though, as I said, it's rather discouraging that they don't have the fourth or the first in a format such as this. I guess I should also mention the fact how this also comes from a time of antiquity in terms of video game history, where the video game box art and subsequently the CD-ROM case art, it definitely has that 80s slash early 90s look to it. It's as if Americans had never ever seen uh, anime style drawing before, and I don't know why they did this sort of thing. Maybe it was just to give local artists jobs and money and everything like that. But again, to me, looking at this, I mean, it's got Valis 2 in big kind of silvery letters with the eye looking like a sword in the middle. And then it's got, to be honest, I don't even know who the hell that is. It could have been that weird kind of pink demonic dragon looking dude who was saying that we must get the sword of Valis or something. But and then it's got a little green lizard with a little skull cap on it, and then what looks like an angry chicken coming at her with claw hands. And then, of course, it's got what's supposed to be Yuko swinging her sword at the creature with brown hair, not blue like it is in the actual game. Again, as I was going to say, you can play the game and you can see the cutscenes, right? Like this isn't you're not operating off of a tiny little 8-bit character sprite, right? Like you actually have original video game box art as well as actual art, cinematic cutscenes in the game telling you what this character should look like, right? And I would say it's done to an even worse extent in Valis 3, honestly, where uh, we'll just get to that in the next review. But no, it's I don't prefer it, but I'm glad it exists, to tell you the truth, because it shows the stark contrast of cultures that was going on at the time. And at this point, this sort of drawing was the rule, not the exception. Just look at the first copy or the first box art of the first Mega Man, right? Yeah, not very good at all. But no, yeah, again, everything is kitschy about this game, and I enjoy it, honestly. And I mean, you know what? It's like for this is a side note, but for working designs to claim that they were always going for like originality and being true to the original subject matter, looking at their box art for Cosmic Fantasy 2, yeah, you dropped the ball on that one there, Vic. Yeah. Oh well, what can you do? Uh, so all in all, yeah, it's not a bad game. I absolutely enjoyed it. And well, I guess I'll see you next time for the next playthrough. Alrighty, this has been Valis 2 with Skwatter. Alright, I'm out.